Hi folks! I haven't talked a lot about ChatGPT. In fact, I haven't talked at all in my YouTube videos. Sometimes I posted something on Twitter or LinkedIn when I started using it. So I started using it several weeks ago and it helped me a lot on a daily basis. And this is all about code, copywriting, keywords generation, help for generating titles for YouTube videos, and so on. From the code perspective, it mostly helped me in cases where you struggle a lot with some simple thing that you can't spot, and it can spot it immediately. So it decreases the time for you to fix something. From the code generation perspective, I would say it's like 50-50. Sometimes it's fine, sometimes it's not. But still, it gives you some outputs that you can rework, refactor to your needs. And today, we are going to look at this code generation in context of C# and .NET. And we will be comparing the output from ChatGPT 3.5, which is available to everyone, and as well ChatGPT-4, which is available for Plus subscribers. And yes, I decided to buy this Plus subscription last week, and I'm happy with that. So let's begin with the test. Our ChatGPT, and as you can see, this looks exactly the same for non-Plus users. So you can have this ChatGPT 3.5. And when you are this ChatGPT Plus user, you have as well the possibility to change it to GPT-4. And of course, it's more advanced model than ChatGPT 3.5. And I can already tell you that from the results perspective, I am way more satisfied in comparison to 3.5 with this newest model. However, today we will start this code generation from GPT 3.5. And what we would like to have is to generate some kind of a business rule checking mechanism. So something that you can use in your application, no matter if it is web app, desktop app, or any other application. We always have some business rules there. And for that, I would like to ask this ChatGPT that I would like to have this mechanism in C# that allows me to. And first point is that I would like to create different business rules. And one more thing here to add is that I want to keep open-closed principle from solid ones. So I don't want to have some kind of mechanism that just adds in one file, in one class, just adds new business rules, and then we are breaking this open-close principle model, but I would like to have clear separation of it. So that's the first thing that we will talk about here, or we ask the ChatGPT model. Then second one is that each business rule should be positive. And from positive, I mean that we want can instead of can not, no negation, etc. And here, let's say some kind of examples we should give it to it. So we want a rule that says that seat can be reserved only by adult. And another one is that pool discount only for town residents. So if you are outside of a town, you are not able to have the discount to enter the pool. And third one is that each business rule should return true or false. Then each business rule should contain message saying why the rule was broken. Next point is that we would like to validate such a business rule somehow. So we want some kind of mechanism where I can inject business rule to check it, and if something is wrong, throw an exception with a message from the business rule. And the last point is that entire mechanism should be reusable without breaking open-closed principle. Okay, so we have here a set of rules that we would like to ask our ChatGPT 3.5 to create classes, to create code that we can execute then inside our solution. So I hit enter, and here in the plus model, it's very fast with generating the messages. And for ChatGPT-4, unfortunately, it's the same like without the plus subscription for ChatGPT 3.5. So let's see what did it generate here, if it is fine or it can be somehow changed. So we are here starting from the beginning. It says that we can achieve it by using combination of some interfaces, classes, and delegates, and it gives some way to implement such a mechanism. So what it is doing here is that it creates some interface with a generic parameter that will be checked later. So let's copy the code and let's go to the solution. And I prepared already some kind of program console in Rider environment, so you can do the same. Let's create first interface, and we will name it exactly like it was there. So business rule, we have it here, and let's get back to the browser. It has some kind of a method which checks if it is valid or not. And of course we need to add it as well here. Okay, so we have here this iBusiness rule generated by this ChatGPT. And what next? Next we have business rules that it created. So it checks if this reservation is valid. And then if it is valid, then it outputs the string error message. When it is not valid, then it outputs this error message that only adults can reserve a seat. And then otherwise it just returns true, and it's fine here. And here we have some kind of a validation mechanism. To be honest, from what I see here already, it's quite complicated. But yeah, let's give it a try. So I will copy the first one. So we have here the seat can be reserved only by adult. And let's create a class for it. It can be reserved only by adult. So it's our class. Let's replace it here with what was generated. We don't have anything like reservation, so we can ask to just create this class for reservation, and it complicates it here more and more. So we need a customer with the age. So let's create this customer property. And this customer property could be as well of type customer. To simplify a bit what was generated, I will just create a number, so integer for the age. So here we have this integer, and we will drop this customer just to simplify these things which were generated by ChatGPT. Okay. So we have here this reservation seat can be reserved only by adult. We will move it to a separate class. So we have it here. And now let's go and check the other thing here. We could now take the second one as well and test it, but to speed it up a bit, we will just take this first validation mechanism. And for this first validation mechanism, we will create a class as well. And this class can be called like business rule validator or something like that. So we create it here on the main level, business rule validator. And inside we will have this validation, and we don't have any business exception. So let's create this business exception, and here we can just throw the exception itself with the message that we have here. And again, here this validator takes group of rules. If you want to have just a single rule, we can change it as well, why not? So we can say that no, we just want one rule to have here, and we want to check this rule if it is valid or not. And here we are, so this rule is valid, and otherwise we have error messages. And again, here we don't need this error messages collection. We can just say that if there is something wrong, we can just put it here, throw new business exception. Let's drop this line. And then from that perspective, we can just say that there was some error message, and we just throw this new business exception. We can rename it even to business rule exception to make it more clear. And of course, we can move it to a separate class. So we have this business rule exception, and inside this business rule exception, we can have some kind of a message. And here, as we have just the message, we can just remove this one. We don't want to throw it here. We can just say that for the base, we want to use message. And that's it. We have this validation mechanism for checking the business rule. So what we have here is this business rule exception, the validator itself, which is checking this rule. And we have the interface for the business rule. And then we have our reservation class with the H. And what else? We have here just the seat can be reserved only by adult. So let's try out our validation mechanism. So we have here our console application. Let's create a new reservation. And this reservation will have some kind of age, and let's say that it will be 20. And now we want to use our business rule validator to validate it. And what are we adding here is, first of all, this reservation, second of all, the business rule itself. Okay, so let's try it. If everything is fine, then there should be completely no error because we are at the age of 20. So we are validating this reservation. And let's try it. As mentioned, build succeeded, everything is fine. Now let's change it to 15 and let's try it. And here we have an error. So we are throwing this business rule exception that only adults can reserve a seat. So the mechanism works fine, and thing that was generated by ChatGPT-3.5 works already fine. However, this code which is generated here is way too complicated. So what you can get rid of is for sure this entity. So you don't need any generic type on the interface. So you can just have this isValid method, and isValid method can have no parameters. The parameter of the error message could be inside this iBusiness rule interface and then defined for every single business rule. However, as mentioned, it still works fine. You can use it and it will be working okay. Okay, so we have our ChatGPT 3.5 code generation, and what I will just do right now is that I will grab what I created here before and we will create a new chat, this time for ChatGPT-4. And as you can see at the moment, this ChatGPT-4 is limited to 25 messages every 3 hours and it's slow. So it's like mentioned before, this ChatGPT without Plus subscription for ChatGPT 3.5. And what I want to do here is exactly the same thing than before. I want to add the same message and let's see what ChatGPT-4 will generate. And of course, I will speed it up because it's very, very slow. And okay, here we are now. Of course, it took a bit more for this ChatGPT-4 to generate this response, but from what I can see right now already, it's way better than with ChatGPT model 3.5. So what we have here is some kind of an interface, which is called iBusinessRule, and it contains two methods. One which is checking if this business rule is valid, and second one with the error message. And this is the mechanism which is way more flexible than the one before, where we were just depending on some kind of a generic type. So what I want to do here is copy this code and we start from the same state as we did before. So what I want to have here is the interface and I want to name it iBusinessRule. And I have a typo here. And let's replace it with the thing that was generated by ChatGPT. So this interface is ready here. And now we want to let's take as well one of these business rules, but you can see that it is great from the open close principle that it creates just the new implementation of iBusinessRule every single time it needs to add the implementation for specific business rule. So let's take this one. It can be reserved only by adult. And again, replace the content of it with the one which was generated. As you can see here, we have this error message. It can be reserved only by an adult and it is valid only if the age is equal or greater than 18 years. So we have our business rule. Now let's take a look what was done for the business rule validator. And as before, maybe I forgot to specify that I would like to validate just a single business rule. So we will replace the logic that is here a bit with something else. So for now, I will copy it. Business rules validator is the class. I will call it just business rule validator. And here we will take the content of what was created here. And as you can see, I had to just say continue because it stops at some point with generating responses. It stops. So if you face such a situation, just say continue and it will continue from the place that was stopped at. So let's now take back the rider and here we have a validate. Business rule validator. Here it contains this classes, the collection of the business rules. And we just want to have a single business rule. So what we will do here is that in this validate, we would like to have iBusinessRule. And here we will be just checking it that it's fine and nothing else. Okay, so we have invalid operation exception. That's great. We have this error message from the business rule. We have a validation, and let's make this static, both, so the method and the class. So we have business rule validation without the need of creating the business rule validator instance. And here we can do our check. So what we want to check is that our business rule validator validates, and now we want to say which business rule we want to validate. So let's say we want this seat can be reserved only by adult. Let's say it's 18 years old, and we just start our application. And as you can see, all went fine, nothing bad happened. Now let's change it to 15. Let's hit it back. Wait a sec. And you see, we have broken our business rule. So it says that seat can be reserved only by an adult, and we are not adults. We are just 15 years old here. And this is great. The outcome of the ChatGPT-4 is way better than I expected. So if you compare it to this 3.5, there were a lot of different things that could be improved. And here from that perspective, we have this validator. Of course, my fault that I didn't define that I wanted for single rule validation. And then we have this iBusiness rule interface, and look how easy it is to implement it with this business rule itself. So if you look at that point here, we just have the constructor, we have some private field to which we are passing the parameter and assigning it, and then the isValid method just checks this private field if it is equal or greater than 18 years old. If not, then it throws the error message. So this mechanism is extremely valuable and maintainable, because imagine that you are just creating some kind of unit test. You just take this business rule, and it's so easy to unit test such a business rule. It can pass or fail based on the input parameter like the age. And this way you can implement this business rule validation in your application, and it doesn't matter if you are following domain-driven design with aggregates and all this stuff, or you are just following some really simple architecture. You can always use such a mechanism to validate these business rules. So let me know if you would like to see more such episodes where we are combining the AI like ChatGPT with programming languages, libraries, or frameworks. So I am able to do that in C# and .NET, React, Angular. So if you are just curious about it, let me know in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching today's episode. If you have any comments or questions, just put it in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you in the next episode on Friday.